It's a long time that you lost me. No? Okay.
Okay, you need to share your screen.
Yeah. Ah, okay, here it is. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Well, the results highlight a lack of awareness on part of all the actors of the importance of the schoolscapes and of its roles. Sorry, I'm trying here. Okay. And this data emerged at all stages of the research, starting from contacting schools to arrive to the results of the questionnaires, passing through the guided tour and the interviews. Well, of course, there were exceptions. For example, one teacher said, I believe that the space where the students live should be a synesthetic immersion. The structure itself is a resource. And this was later confirmed by the analysis of the visual data themselves, because in his classroom, all the walls were heavily exploited. And in general, it can be seen that teachers and principals have shown a good awareness of the promotional and identity role of the schoolscape. In fact, all informants directed their attention towards certain signs depending on the mission of the schools and the value deemed important. For example, in schools where the languages promotion is important, all the signs in foreign languages were shown. Schools where a great attention to the culture of legality was paid. The participants proudly displayed all the artifacts related to this. But conversely, lack of attention has been shown by teacher and managers and principals regarding the implicit formative and ideological charge of the space. And the results of the questionnaires suggest that students do not have a great awareness of the usefulness of the escape. However, some factors significantly influence this awareness. Like gender and school grade, which were decisive elements in this sense, with girls and younger students more aware of their peers. But the interesting thing that emerged is that students who find themselves interacting daily with schoolscape reaching signs, this last ANOVA result, are significantly more aware of their usefulness than their classmates, who, on the other hand, act in spaces less characterized in a semiotic sense. And this was really interesting. With regard to linguistic uses, a trend towards Italian monolingualism was noticed. On the one hand, a different trend toward lingualism in the schoolscape was observed depending on the school type and its linguistic curriculum. But on the other hand, the presence of different languages appears to be linked to the different functions of the schoolscape itself, which coincide with the categories, so again, educational, advertising, etc. A quarter of the total number of signs were diverse languages, and the number of languages identified was quite high, with over 40 languages. And the most visible are the one that you can see in the graph. Well, among the most visible, there are the languages that form part of the different curricula, such as French, German, and Spanish, and in a school also Chinese, Arabic, and Japanese, which are visible on the school's walls, mainly thanks to the teachers. And these languages appear more frequently in the analyzed schools, suggesting that the schoolscape reflect actually the official curricula of the schools. A particular case is that of English, language that is part of the curricula of all schools, which appears not only on educational science, but also on management, advertising, and decorative science. Some of the languages find space on the school walls as a consequence of globalization and implicit advertising function of the schoolscape. So flyers of Japanese or Chinese restaurants are found in the corridors of the schools, echoing the linguistic diversity of the super diverse urban linguistic landscape. And other languages are observable on decorative signs and are the consequences of the European commitment to pursuing multilingual education and cooperation between countries. That's interesting. A comparison of student linguistic repertoires and the visibility of the languages in the schoolscape shows that these languages have little presence in the schoolscape. And this is true both for migrant languages and especially for Italian dialects, whose presence is almost zero, except for some signs placed by school collaborators and students. While, as you can see, more than half of the students that participate in the questionnaires declare that they know and they speak an Italian dialect, while only 7 signs of the total of almost 2,000 shows something in the dialect. And the same, more or less, for immigrant languages. But here, the interesting thing that has emerged is the role of the principal, because it has emerged that the principal plays a key role in creating a school environment that enhances or either gives space or, by contrast, rejects the linguistic diversity brought by the students. And the schoolscape analysis has proved to be a reliable indicator of the level of attention paid to linguistic diversity in schools. And migrant languages were found mainly on signs belonging to the management category, that is, those directly subjected to the control of the principal. And that's it. Okay, and all of this is linked, of course, with the 6th research questions, that is, what is the relationship between schoolscape and plurilingual and intercultural education? Well, first of all, the results reflect the great diversity in the Italian linguistic space. Here you can see how the vast majority of students declare that they speak between 3 and 5 languages. And here, this other graph is really interesting, I think, because the overwhelming majority of the students say that they were curious to learn something in their peers' languages. And despite the almost zero implementation of multilingual didactic activities involving the linguistic repertoires of the students, over a third of the informants demonstrated that they independently learn vocabulary or expression in other languages. Because in the questionnaires, there was a section in which they can wrote something in their peers' languages. And this is an extremely interesting fact, which I think must be taken into consideration for the development of language policy. And well, the table here is a bit complicated, but as I said, what emerged from one side is the fact that the schoolscape reflects the official curriculum of the school, while there is a mismatch between the number of immigrant students and the use of their languages in the schoolscape. And since there is no explicit top-down national policy aimed at enhancing migrant languages, the implementation of school-based language micropolicy is almost exclusively due to linguistic sensitivity and to the ideologies and beliefs of principals and teachers. And finally, last questions, I swear. We wanted to investigate the attitudes toward language diversity in the schoolscape and the factors that from which different attitudes depend. Okay. From a general perspective, the results of the study return a photograph of a school open to linguistic diversity and a visual manifestation of it. Students, teachers, and principals at the declarative level have shown positive attitudes toward the use of plurilingual signs in the schoolscape, especially with regard to the migrant languages. Not everyone was in favor of this. Here we can see some examples, but what emerged is that in the majority of cases, they never thought about it. I mean, they were not aware of the importance of the schoolscape or of the possibility to use, to employ the schoolscape to show the repertoires of the students. And also from the questionnaires, some interesting data. Well, in general, a good attitude also from students was observed. The individual factors that influence attitudes were the gender. So again, female students showed significantly more positive attitudes toward linguistic diversity in the schoolscape than their male peers. Age and the school grade also seems to influence attitudes. And it was interesting to note how also the CLIL program produced some important effects on the attitude. And the most interesting thing, I think, is the percentage of intercultural science. I mean, that schools what we observe is that the exposure to schoolscapes characterized in an intercultural sense correspond to more positive attitudes significantly toward a plurilingual schoolscape. I hope I explained. Well, so the conclusion we can draw from the studies are numerous. In general, the research, we hope, contribute to linguistic landscape studies in general and in Italy in particular, offering a rich and detailed methodological framework which can be used in other contexts. We hope in the future this will have important repercussions in terms of language policy and plurilingual and intercultural education. But of course, the research continues. So thanks for the attention. Merci, grazie mille. Obrigado. Non so. Thanks. If you have any questions, of course.
Just for the questions, you can ask the questions directly or in the chat.
I'm sorry if we took more time than.
Yes, there's a question in the chat. No, I'm not sure if you can read it, but first, thank you. Our plural approach is a part of the Italian curriculum.
Okay, I start to the second question because it's better to answer to second question, because for neoplurilingualism we speak about not only Italian and dialects, but Italian dialects, historical minority languages, and Italian as a language of contact, and immigrant languages. And for this reason, and during last 10-15 years, there is also this expression neoplurilingualism, and we use this theoretical framework also. About plural approaches, yes, in the curriculum there are also plural approaches, but not only the teacher, for the teacher, it's difficult to use plural approaches sometimes. Because
yeah, I mean,
it's in high school, plural approaches is it's very good in primary school, but in secondary school and high school is not. It's difficult to use these approaches.
Yeah, because they are not prescriptive. Yeah, sorry, I cannot formulate it. So the Italian school, the pluralistic approach more used in the Italian school is the intercultural one, while language awareness is not that known like all the other approaches. Is the only one is the intercultural one, and it's more used in primary schools and not in the secondary schools.
If nobody else has a question, can I ask you the slide that was before, the slide that said number 7, attitudes. It was a slide with a table and a lot of figures.
Yep.
Could you explain that a little bit? You had to go quickly through it and I had trouble following.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because we have so many data and so many results, and we need to condensate. We try to understand if the schoolscape reflects from one side the official curriculum of the school, okay, from a linguistic perspective. So in the schools where CLIL projects are active, or schools where different languages are taught, are the same where there are more signs in these kind of languages. And yes, we notice that that's what happened. So the schoolscape proved to be a good mirror of the official curriculum of the schools. Okay. At the same time, we tried also to focus on migrant languages, and so migrant pupils, and so trying to consider the schools where there are a majority or high number and percentages of pupils of migrant background, and try to compare with the results from the schoolscape, and so considering intercultural science and science with migrant languages to see if the schools where there are these kind of signs are the same where there are migrant pupils. And what is noticed is that no, there is a mismatch in this kind of data. So the reason is that, as we say, there is no a top-down policy that asks to schools to evaluate and to display migrant languages or to active intercultural projects. And so this depends on the sensitivity and to the ideologies of principals and teachers. So schools where there are maybe only 15%, 20%, okay, of migrant pupils, maybe they have a schoolscape really connotated in a plurilingual way with their with the languages from their repertoires and intercultural activities and so on, while schools where 70% of students are of migrant background with zero signs and zero activity for this kind of students and for their Italian peers. Okay, so we notice this kind of difference, and that table show that kind of of results.
Thank you very much. So basically the languages which are seen as legitimate at school because they're on the curriculum are reflected in the landscape, but all the children's, the pupils' languages and repertoires are ignored basically, including the regional dialects.
Exactly. Mostly the Italian dialects. I mean, we see more Arabic and Chinese and Romanian than the dialects of the pupils. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's very much the same here. I have to say that the last presentation about Alsatian was the same situation as well. Yeah. I had another question, but I leave the floor for other people.
Okay.
There's a question in the chat from Monica.
Yes, about the question in chat. Martina finished the research in February 2020, and for this reason, all the meetings with the principal or teacher are blocked by the pandemic, and we are writing a project for the ministry. We are writing a project for the school. Because we want to restart also with the school in presence, and also some more attention to the linguistic diversity.
Yeah, and also, Monica, I'm still in contact with the teachers and principals of the schools where I conducted the research, and I just finished to write a book, finger crossed for everything. But of course, I will send the book to these schools, and we will continue our discussion about what I discovered and what can we do to improve and make the school more plurilingual and democratic for everyone. Thank you.
Maybe I can ask my other question then. Je profite. I'm wondering, it looks like the school head teacher has a lot of power regarding what is allowed and what is not allowed. Do you have a law in Italy about what is allowed to be put up in public places? Because in France, we have a law, we can use other languages, but we must have French as well on the sign.
Now, there are laws for top-down signs, okay? And there, yes, there should be Italian with eventually other languages, local languages. While for shop signs, for example, it depends from city to city. So there are cities in which it's mandatory, right, Professor Bagna? I don't want to say something wrong, but that's what I know.
There are specific regulations from different municipalities, and sometimes is compulsory only Italian, sometimes Italian and familiar languages or languages less more spoken, and sometimes Italian plus translation in Chinese or Arabic, but the first languages must be Italian. And these regulations are changes during the last 10 years, and sometimes there are some regulations about, for example, Chinese language depends on the municipality, for example, in Rome or in Prato, or where there is a very big Chinese community. This kind of regulation helped also the Chinese to study Italian, and the municipality decided this regulation and also decide a number of Italian language courses for Chinese immigrants. But it's changing in every city.
Thank you. It's interesting.
Because this regulation is not depends for linguistic reasons, but for commercial reasons, and the municipality can decide if in the historical city center the tourists or the people want to see only some languages or other languages, and so on.
So not commercial, but ideological and political reasons, let's say.
If we have some more time, I have a question. Given the results of the interview concerning the awareness of teachers and